We're delighted to host Venerable Thubten Chodron today, a wonderful and inspiring teacher, for a conversation on the path of wisdom and compassion. We're very much looking forward to hearing her speak on the masterful series of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, as this year marks the anniversary of the 10 volumes of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, which is co-authored by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Venerable Thubten Chodron. Venerable Thubten Chodron is an author, teacher, and the founder of Abbess of Sravasti Abbey, one of the first Tibetan Buddhist training monasteries for Western monks and nuns in America. She ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist nun in 1977 and has studied extensively with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other Tibetan masters. Venerable Chodron also teaches worldwide and is known for her warm, practical, and humorous explanations of how to apply Buddhist teachings in daily life. She has published many books on Buddhist philosophy and meditation in several languages, and her books, Buddhism for Beginners and Open Heart, Clear Mind, are widely recommended introductory works. We will now allow for Sravasti Abbey to prepare for Thubten Chodron and start on time with the talk. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to drop them in the chat. Please do also keep yourself muted. Unless you're called upon at the end, there will be an opportunity to ask Venerable Chodron questions. And with that, I will briefly be able to welcome Venerable as the third class. But with that, I will leave you here, and hopefully we can listen into the chanting at Sravasti Abbey as well. Thank you so much, friends. I'm not sure if now is the time to come in.
Jasmine wants to introduce you.
Sure, go ahead.
Welcome, Venerable. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us at the Contemplative Consciousness Network. It's such an honor to hear from such an inspiring teacher. I've been told to keep the introduction short, and we've already introduced you, so I will hand over to you and the team. Very blessed to be here. Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you for inviting me to give a talk to the Contemplative Consciousness Network, located in UK. So, I don't know if your network is what its relationship is with the Buddha Dharma, but as a Buddhist nun, I'm going to be speaking from that kind of angle, and how the Buddha talks about the mind, and what the mind is, how we relate to it, and so on. Okay, it's nice to cultivate our motivation first. Let's do the four. What? You're going like this. What am I? The four immeasurables.
He's gonna give me power to share slides. I just need permission to share slides.
Okay. The four immeasurables are very common Buddhist practice, found in, I think, all the Buddhist traditions, and it's a nice thing to recite them and then to use them as our motivation. Okay. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. And so let's have as our motivation for sharing today the attitude to, or the wish, the aspiration to purify our own mind, develop our own good qualities, so that we can stop harming others and instead contribute to their well-being, and even more expansively contribute to the well-being of all living beings. So let's let that be our motivation today. Okay. So, Contemplative Consciousness Network. Yeah, good title. So, in Buddhism, the words mind and consciousness in some situations are slightly different, but most of the time they refer to the same thing. Yeah, it depends how somebody's using them. So that's referring to the part of us that is clear and knowing. In other words, it lacks form, it lacks material. So this already puts us in an interesting relationship with neuroscience, where the brain and the mind kind of merge. I remember, talking to some people who are in the scientific field like that, and when I asked them, what is the mind? They said, oh, it's an emergent property of the brain. And I said, what does emergent property mean? Yeah. And they said, well, it's like how human beings came from amoebas in the ocean, and from the amoebas you emerged more and more sophisticated kinds of living being. But that kind of evolution talks about the physical evolution. It talks about the body, okay? But the mind, consciousness, is not something physical. So, yes, the body and mind are related. And yes, science can locate different parts in the brain that are associated with different emotions or different cognitions, things like that. But just because there's an association doesn't mean that the mind is physical. Okay? I remember once also attending one of the Mind and Life conferences, and at lunchtime talking to one of the scientists, and we were talking about anger, and he was telling me about the different parts of the brain. When you're angry, the parts of the brain that light up. And I said, and he was coming very much from a perspective that anger is those areas in the brain which are lighting up. Anger is something physical in the brain. And I said, okay, when you get mad at somebody and you're really ticked off, do you just say to yourself, oh, that's the synapses in my brain, in certain parts of my brain, firing. And pretty soon the synapses will stop firing, so I don't need to really get angry or deal with my anger, because it's just the synapses doing their thing in the brain, and they'll quiet down soon. And I said, is that how you think when you're angry, to calm your mind? And he said, no. Yeah. And so, this points that if you really think that emotions, intelligence, knowledge, consciousness is something material, is the brain, then, the best way to deal with it is, just say, oh, my synapses are firing, so I don't need to get all wigged out because of this. But people don't think that, do they? Yeah? So it's already showing that there's some disconnect here. Yeah? We can measure the external world very, very well. And even though we can say, well, the brain's part of the internal world in the sense that it is associated with living beings, on the other hand, the brain is part of the external world because it's a recombination of all of our genes plus all of the food that we've eaten. Yeah, isn't that how the brain grew? Because you had genes, physical, and then you ate different food, and it got metabolized, and different cells grew, and so on. Yeah, but that somehow doesn't make it, does it? Yeah. Also, if the brain were the mind, and this, I remember at one of the very early Mind and Life conferences, there were a couple of scientists who were really, quite material oriented. What's the word for it? I can't remember. What?
Materialist?
Yeah, no, not that. I think it starts with an R.
Reductionist?
Yeah, reductionist, thank you. Yeah, so they're very reductionist oriented. And, the mind is the brain. There's nothing separate from that. So some of us were talking afterwards when the scientists left. There were a few of us Buddhists remaining. And we just imagined him going home and his wife saying, I love you, dear. And he goes, wait, okay, I've got to see which area of your brain is where the synapses are firing and what chemicals are going on in your brain and what your galvanic skin response is measuring right now, because I will only know if you love me if I get the proper tallies from all of these physical events. Yeah, that's going to be really good for a marriage, isn't it? Yeah, when everything is just the brain. And we were thinking of, when they were courting, and he just envisioned her brain and said, oh, I love you. Your gray folds are just the most magnificent, sexy thing I've ever seen. Yeah, that's not going to work either. So, we may talk a lot about the brain, but when we actually look at how we relate to living human beings, it's not just their brain. You don't like somebody's brain, and that's why they're your friend. Okay? Yeah. And you don't hate somebody's brain, and that's why, you don't like them. So, there's more, what I'm getting at is there's much more than just the material aspect of who living beings are. Yeah. Because the brain is still there even when the mind has left. Okay? I mean, a corpse has a brain, doesn't it? And you may say, well, the brain's not firing at that time. Yeah, the synapses aren't working, so that's why the mind isn't there. But, that would mean that if you could artificially get the spark the brain and get the synapses going again, then the person would return and be alive. What do you think about that? Is that going to work? Okay, you can get the heart start beating, and if the consciousness hasn't left, the person is there. Yes, there may be brain damage that affects the consciousness, but that's because the mind and the body influence each other, but they're not the same, they're different. Okay? So that's one thing. And in Buddhism, we say that the mind is the source of our happiness and our suffering. And that's not usually how we look at things. If you're a scientist, why do you suffer? Well, there's plaque in your brain, and so you have Alzheimer's. Or, the suffering is something physical. Or if you're just a regular Joe Blow, maybe the suffering isn't physical. It's because some external thing disturbed the peace of your mind. So somebody said this, or they did this, and you take offense, and they were rude. How could somebody say that to me? No wonder I'm upset. They insulted me. As if our feeling of antipathy, our feeling of hurt, our feeling of anger came from the other person, as if it was attached to the sound waves that started with their vocal cords, came out of their mouth into our ear, and then wham! Yeah, I'm angry because I'm insulted. But it was only sound waves. Yeah, are sound waves themselves insulting from their own nature? That would mean when the sound waves went out, if somebody, let's say, is insulting me, yes, some of the sound waves go into my ear, but some of them also hit the wall. Does the wall get insulted? Yeah, I don't think so. Although maybe the wall will start crying, because it has hurt feelings. But, it takes consciousness. It takes a living being who interprets the meaning of those words, who interprets the meaning of the gestures, that makes the hurt feeling occur in the mind. Okay? And we see how much things really depend on our interpretation, because two people can experience the same event and they remember different things. They feel very different afterwards. Yeah. And this is because we all have our own way of interpreting things. Yeah. And one of the biggest examples for me is, if I'm sitting here and somebody else is sitting over there, and a third person walks into the room and looks at my friend who's sitting over there and says, "You jerk, I was counting on you to do this and you just vanished into thin air and the job was left undone and you betrayed my trust." My friend would get really bummed out. They would get upset, because they were criticized and insulted. Me, I would think, not so nice, but I wouldn't get so upset. But if the same person walked in the room and instead of looking at my friend, looked at me and said the exact same words, I would be ticked off. What is the difference? The words are exactly the same. Okay. The difference is if they're directed to that person or if they're directed to me. If they're directed to me, this is very serious business because nobody on this planet has the right to criticize me. Okay, that's one of the main laws of my universe. Yeah, nobody can criticize me. You can criticize my friend. You can criticize somebody I don't like. That's really good. Then you agree with me. Yeah, go ahead and criticize that person. But if you criticize me, the exact same words, boy, you've really overstepped the boundary. And I have every right to be upset. Yeah. So don't tell me to calm down because I'm upset because of what you did. It is your fault. Okay. So again, this is how we usually look at things. Now, it's coming from outside. But when you really think about it, for there to be any conscious, any experience of something, it doesn't take just the object. It takes the consciousness perceiving that object. Okay? The wall doesn't get mad because the wall doesn't have consciousness. If I don't have my hearing aids in, you can call me who knows what, and I may not hear, so I don't get angry. I still have consciousness, but there's no sense organ. Yeah. So in order, for have a consciousness experience, we need three things: not just the mind, not just the sense organ, not just the object. We need the three of them coming together. Okay? And plus, once they come together, we may have some sense data, but then we interpret that sense data. Okay? So if somebody is insulting my friend, I interpret that sense data as, oh, it's their problem. I don't need to get upset. If somebody says those words to me, I interpret it as they're telling me that I am not a worthwhile human being, that I make mistakes, that I don't do everything right, that I am inferior and full of faults, and how dare they say that about me? That is so unfair. And I'm going to let them know. Okay, so do you see? I mean, it's just the sound waves, but it's my mind interpreting them through my little periscope, because I may have eyes and ears that see many things, but in terms of how I think, yeah, the main thing is this little periscope called me, I, my, and mine. And I see the entire world through that periscope. Everything gets filtered through that. Okay? So that's why I get all upset if the words are directed towards me. If the words are directed towards somebody I don't like, right on, yeah, go ahead and criticize that person. They deserve it. Yeah, because that, that's not my periscope. I don't care. But my periscope, which is really tiny because I'm just one person among, at least on this planet, over 8 billion human beings. If we include all the animals and insects, it's gazillions. And if we think of life throughout the universe, it's even more. But what's the most important thing? My itty-bitty periscope that is only focused on me, I, my, and mine, and interprets everything that way. So that focus, that habitual way, that perspective through which we see everything, colors our experience, doesn't it? It creates our experience. Mm-hmm. And so it's in that way Buddhism, says, this is one of the ways in which Buddhism talks about how, our mind creates our happiness and suffering, depending on how we look at something. Mm-hmm. So we hear this. I mean, there's a whole audience here of people who are Buddhist practitioners. You all know this. I'm just repeating what you all know. And I'm sure you could get up here and give this exact same talk, couldn't you? But when things happen in our daily life, what goes on? You! I'm innocent. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that you yourself are always the innocent, exploited, unappreciated person? Yeah. It's always us. It's, And of course, we never exploit other people or make them, or are unappreciative or ridicule them or make fun of them. We never do things like that. And if we happen to say something that triggers somebody else, it's still their fault because, we're being spontaneous and being honest. And they interpreted things like that and got so upset. Yeah? So, So first of all, I'm always right. I'm always innocent. And it's always somebody else's fault. And the sooner you learn that, the better we'll get along. Yeah? Yeah. So it's amazing how we can talk about this when we're, feeling calm and, in a teaching situation. But when real life starts, boy, our Dharma wisdom is out the window, isn't it? Yeah. And, it's out the window. And so we talk a lot about the thought training or mind training teachings. Yeah. And that's what I thought to talk about a little bit. It's from the first volume in the Library of Wisdom and Compassion called Approaching the Buddhist Path. And in it, His Holiness is talking about changing our perspective, changing how we interpret things. And then we go through 9 other volumes, and we get to the last volume, where he's talking about Tantra and, the culmination of the path to awakening. And the theme is still the same theme. It hasn't changed. It's still, we have to change our perspective so that we can see things as they actually are, instead of through the periscope of our self-centered mind, and its buddy, a second periscope, of reifying the self, making our self this incredible, real, concrete thing. Yeah. Okay, so I thought that maybe I would read a little bit. Well, let me just introduce this series, this first volume. So His Holiness first talks about exploring Buddhism, and he talks about, Buddhism being one of the world's great religions, but that doesn't mean that Buddhists go around saying, we're the best religion, we're the only religion. Everybody should believe what we believe. And that's because His Holiness's perspective, again, isn't my religion is the best. Whatever is associated with me is the best that everybody should realize as best. It's not because that's his perspective. It's because he sees that people have different tendencies, different dispositions. And so there's a variety of religions in the world that present different philosophies, different, if it's a theistic religion, they have different theologies, and present a different path to happiness. And that's because people are different and they think different. And so if people can find something, a spiritual tradition that really fits with them well, then since the world's major religions all share a very common ethical grounding, not exactly identical, but very ethical, but very similar, then if people follow the ethics in their own tradition, they live a better life, they, are happier, society is more peaceful. So His Holiness, even though he doesn't believe in a creator God, he'll say, well, for the people who do, God tells them that other living beings are created in his image. And so if other living beings are created in God's image, and if you love God, then you should love God's creation and be kind to other living beings. Okay? So he says that in that kind of way to encourage people who have a different perspective and a different religious belief than he does. Okay? Then it talks about the Buddhist view of life, and then we get into chapter 3 is about mind and emotions. So there he talks some about his dialogue with scientists and how much he appreciates speaking with scientists and learning about how they see things. There's talk about emotions and survival and, that kind of thing. Then there's a little bit about history and the Buddhist canons. And then he talks about the importance of investigating the teachings. Yeah. And so I think this applies not only to Buddhism, but anything we learn, we should investigate. And I think what is really showing that now is all the conspiracy theories that are floating around. So I don't know, in UK, do you have as many conspiracy theories as we have in America? America likes to think we're bigger and better than the rest of the world, so maybe we have bigger and better conspiracy theories. Yeah. Although it seems like when you talk about the royal family in the UK, that there's a number of weird theories there too. But, yeah. But, whatever we hear, we should really investigate, is it true or not? And we just saw, with the current election, people, and with QAnon, how people can just make up things and speak it, and other people will believe. And it's hard to discern in some cases whether people believe what they're saying or whether they know they're making it up and they're lying. It's hard to know, We have somebody who's just been nominated in the cabinet for the Department of Health and Human Services, and he is anti-vaccination, and what else? He has what? Yeah, oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, he's really come out as anti-fluoride. And our dentist that we go to here, he told me specifically, because he's in another state, he's in Idaho across the border, and he says for years there were Idaho didn't put fluoride in its water. And as a dentist, he was filling cavities of all these kids because they got a lot of cavities. As soon as Idaho started putting fluoride in the water, he didn't have nearly as many kids coming in needing fillings. Yeah, so he's a dentist. He knows. He says fluoride works. Yeah, but we have somebody who's saying no fluoride, no vaccinations. Again, I remember I was just a really little kid when they developed polio vaccinations. Yeah, some of you remember that. Our parents picked us up and took us there, and we had those shots as soon as possible, because our folks had seen the result of when kids get polio. It's not fun. Yeah, and it affects the child's entire life. Yeah, so it was just, a polio vaccine was like, yes, everybody wants it. So it's so strange now that somebody is coming out against vaccines, and saying that they lead to autism. I listened to one woman on a show recently, and she was saying when she was pregnant, she did everything right. She ate all organic, no vaccines, no chemical anything, totally did exactly everything natural, everything she was supposed to do, and she had a healthy baby. Yeah, because that was the idea of doing all this. She followed everything you're supposed to do to have a healthy baby. So she had a healthy baby, but as the child grew up, some of his behavior, was he couldn't tune in to the social cues. And people said to her, oh, you should check up. Maybe your child has autism. And she said, no, I did everything right according to all the naturalists. And I had a healthy baby. My baby can't have autism. But eventually, the child was diagnosed that way. And now the child's getting some treatment. Yeah. But, so when the Buddha spoke about really investigating his teachings and not believing something just because he said it, that applies to everything that we hear. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't listen to experts. Yeah, Because some people take that, oh yes, we've got to investigate everything, so experts don't count. Well, let me tell you something, okay? If I were the expert on everything and didn't listen to other people's expertise, okay, we would not have plumbing, we would not have electricity, we would not have a building that we're sitting in, because I don't know anything about any of that. Okay, yes, I took a science class in high school that taught about how electricity worked. I thought that was really interesting, but I've forgotten it. And so all I know now is how to flick the light switch. And sometimes in the new building, I have trouble even with that, because you punch this thing and nothing happens, you know. And you punch the thing that looks like it turns it off and it goes on, you know. So, you know, and with plumbing, you know, I know how to turn the tap on, I know how to flush the toilet, but if anything beyond that doesn't work, I call for help. Okay, so my point here is we do need to listen to people who know more than us, yeah, but learning from other people, we should then think about things and see if it makes sense. Okay, if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't work, leave it aside, yeah, but we should check things out, because it's only when we check things out that, and especially when it comes to a spiritual path, that we will gain, you know, and that we will really practice it. Yeah, because otherwise we'll sit back and we'll go, the Buddha said do this and it will lead to happiness, but no. Yeah, and we're saying no because actually we don't want to change, which is different than saying, oh, I checked that out, I tried it, it doesn't work. Okay. So then His Holiness goes on to talk about kindness and compassion and tools for the path, making progress. And he talks a little bit about his own personal reflections. Now, there's the 8 verses of thought training. So I thought that since you asked me to speak about this series of books, I should definitely read something from them. Okay. So His Holiness says, I recite the 8 verses of mind training written by Langri Tangpa, who lived in the 11th and 12th century, so a little while ago. But it's quite interesting how human minds function now, our current human minds function very similarly to the way human minds functioned, you know, at the time Langri Tangpa was alive. Yeah, technologically, you know, we live in very different cultures. Yeah, very different times. But in terms of how the mind operates, you know, that we have ignorance, anger, attachment, yeah, pride, jealousy, but we also have some wisdom, some concentration, some love and compassion. You know, our minds are very similar to the beings' minds a long time ago. So we can't dismiss Langri Tangpa's 8 verses by saying, oh, you know, he just lived 12, 13, you know, he lived many centuries ago. So I'm not listening to what he said. Okay. So His Holiness says, when I am delayed at an airport, I reflect on these verses, and before going into potentially difficult situations, I contemplate them as well. And then he is going to explain these 8 verses. So I'll read each verse and some of his commentary. It's a little bit long, I don't know. Well, we have 2 hours for this talk, so we might get through it. Okay. So the first verse. With the thought of attaining awakening for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. So in ancient times, they believed in wish-fulfilling jewels, and the sailors would all go out and mine the ocean looking for wish-fulfilling jewels. This was before the Titanic sank. Okay, now they go and they're looking among the wreck of the Titanic for old liquor that is very well aged. Yes. You see, human beings do things that are really... What? Really? You said stupid? No. Okay. So, here it's saying, so I will look at all beings as being more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Okay, just think, with a wish-fulfilling jewel, maybe Elon's going to find one in space, or he might make one, bring it back to Earth. We have a wish-fulfilling jewel. They appear in the form of tissues. But sometimes in your life, a tissue is a wish-fulfilling jewel for your needs. So, other living beings are wish-fulfilling jewels? Come on. You think that our president-elect and your former prime minister are wish-fulfilling jewels? You think Elon is a wish-fulfilling jewel? And that you should treasure them as if they will give you everything you want. All the anxiety, all the headaches, all the fear, all the worry. Yes, they are indeed wish-fulfilling jewels. Okay, so why in the world is the Langri Tampa, this Buddhist sage, telling us to cherish other living beings as if they could be the source of all of our happiness? Well, coming back to my inadequacy when it comes to not only plumbing, electricity, construction, also road work, also computers, also making anything that entails any kind of machines, then I have to rely on other living beings for all the things that I use in my life that I enjoy. I don't know how to make carpet. Anybody here know how to make carpet? Online? Any of you know how to make carpet? Can you make carpet all by yourself? What about the clothes you're wearing? Who made their own clothes? Well, maybe somebody here, because they don't make monastic robes and sell them at Macy's. Although I don't know, maybe Vogue will show monastic robes sometime. Yeah, this year in department stores, the color burgundy is in, which means we can finally get new jackets and sweaters. Yeah, burgundy only comes in, every, I don't know how many, years. And in between one episode of burgundy and the next, our sweaters and jackets disintegrate. Because we don't know how to make the cloth. Yeah? So all of these things that we use, that we take for granted. Glasses. Yeah, I see a number of you are wearing glasses, or maybe contacts. Yeah, did you make your own glasses? Yeah, or your own glass frames? We, for everything that we have, everything that we use, we depend on the labors of other living beings. Without people doing all the different jobs in society, we would, I wouldn't even be living in a tent because I don't know how to make the fabric to make the tent, and I don't know how to mine the metal that makes the stake that holds the tent to the ground. If left on our own, we can't survive. We depend on other living beings for everything. Yeah? And so the more we can train ourselves to open our eyes and see this as the reality of our own experience, then the more our mind, our attitude towards other living beings will change. And instead of seeing them, with suspicion or, judging them by their nationality, their religion, their race, their ethnicity, whether they play ping pong or not, all the ways that we divide sentient beings and other them, if we really saw how much we depend on them for everything, our whole attitude would change. Yeah? And we wouldn't see strangers anymore. When you're walking down the street or in an airport or on the highway in a traffic jam, those wonderful moments, when you are parked on the highway for who knows how long, together with other cars, and what's our attitude usually then? Honk! Yeah, of course, nobody can move. Yeah, the traffic is not moving. You can honk all you want, nothing changes, okay? But we're angry. We don't like this situation. Somebody should have changed it so that there are no traffic jams. What should other beings have done? First of all, these people should not ride on the highway when I want to ride on it. Yeah, because if there weren't so many cars, we wouldn't have a jam. Second of all, the people who plan the highways should have made them more lanes, and the construction workers should have made more lanes. Yeah, and they should have made more overpasses and tunnels, because I want to be able to drive when I drive, okay? When I want to. But, so what we're doing, we're faulting other living beings without realizing that the highway exists, the cars that we drive exist, the petrol or electricity that's using to run our cars, all these things come due to the labors of other living beings. Yeah, and in that way, they are really like, wish-fulfilling jewels, because otherwise we would have to walk. Okay? Yeah. So otherwise, yeah, all you people in UK, yeah, if it wasn't for the kindness of others, you know, how are you going to come to the Abbey? You're going to have to swim. Yeah. So not just, of course, across the English Channel, but across the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. And then you can walk across the North American continent to arrive at the Abbey. Yeah. But we won't have any buildings or even tents for you to live in because we don't know how to make any of these things. Yeah. So to really look around and feel our interconnection with other living beings. This is really extremely important. And there's a whole meditation on the kindness of others. And that's what this verse is pointing to. You know, how everything we know, everything we have, everything we do, everything we enjoy, it all comes due to the labors of other living beings. And what do? In return, we complain because they didn't do more and better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we drive on the road and they're doing road work, then we complain. Yeah. Why are you doing road work now, just when I want to drive on the road? You should do it at 2:00 in the morning when I'm not on the road. Yeah. So, you know, we don't care about those people doing the road work. Yeah, you can get up at 2 in the morning and, you know, well, you would get up earlier and then work your 8-hour day, maybe from 11 at night until 7 in the morning, and just at the time when I'm not riding on the road, and yeah, then it'll all be the way I want it. Instead, you know, when we pass people doing the road, we should stop and thank them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this is a way of training our mind, and it really takes some effort to do this, because we are so used to, this is just some material thing that magically appeared. Yes, I know somebody, you know, people pick the cotton or the wool, and the wool came from the sheep, and somebody sheared it, and somebody invented polyester cotton, you know, that they mixed with cotton and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I know that. But when I look around and look at the individuals around me, do I think, oh, I only have the things I enjoy because of their efforts? Yeah, it's really something when to train the mind that way. Yeah, because then when you walk around, you see everybody as friendly. You see everybody as kind. Yeah, and so that periscope changes from suspicion to, oh, kindness. Yeah. Then when we interact with people, because we see them as kind, then we interact in a very different way than if we see them with suspicion. Yeah, maybe they're going to hurt me. Maybe they're not going to like me. Maybe they're going to criticize me. Yeah. So it's you know, it's like when you meet people, do you give them the benefit of the doubt, or are we always looking for faults in other people? Unless, of course, somebody is very physically attractive, the way their atoms and molecules are arranged pleases you, then everything they do is good. Yeah? Until, well, we all know what happens then. Yeah? So when you look at the way our ordinary mind thinks, we're a little bit cuckoo sometimes. Not just sometimes, but actually fairly often. Yeah? Okay, so learning to see living beings as a wish-fulfilling jewel. Okay, so His Holiness talks about how our external well-being depends on others. Then he goes on and he says, our internal well-being depends on others as well. As we train our minds to see others in a more positive way, feelings of closeness and caring arise in us, which allow us to relax. On the other hand, if we dwell on others' faults and despise them, we are unhappy. That's true, isn't it? Yeah. A sense of goodwill towards others gives us inner strength in our daily lives, even in the face of difficulties. What does he mean? A sense of goodwill towards others. How does that give us inner strength? Yeah. How does that give us inner strength, even in the face of difficulties? Do you have any ideas? How does that work? Yeah. So this is something to really check in your meditation. Yeah. If I look at it, the way I look at it is if I approach others with goodwill, I'm not looking at their faults. I'm not on edge, waiting for them to criticize me or point out some fault. Yeah. But instead I approach them with an attitude of friendliness. Yeah. And thus they react to me differently than if I approach them with an attitude of, they're different, what are they going to do? Okay, so my mind becomes stronger. Yeah, my mind becomes, stronger. Then, if somebody does say something that I don't like, instead of instantly, flying off the handle, I'll just remember, this is a kind sentient being. Yeah, they want to be happy, just like me, not suffer, just like me. They said this, whatever it is, because they're unhappy at the moment. Yeah. But I don't need to react to it so strongly, because they're saying something about their unhappiness. If I have a fault, yes, I can acknowledge it, but I don't need to get all upset because somebody saw my fault, because they also see my nose and point out that it's rather large. And, I could get upset about that, but that would have changed my whole life if every time, I met somebody, I was thinking, are they going to focus on my big nose? Yeah. Uh-oh. Maybe they think I also have horns on my head. Yeah. And if I have a big nose, then I must be this kind of person. And, that whole group of people. Okay? So, are you seeing how if we approach others with an attitude of kindness and wishing them well, then even if they do things or say things that may not, tickle us, it doesn't become a big deal. Yeah? But when we are focused on ourselves only, then everything everybody does becomes a super big deal. Yeah? on a really big deal, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay. Okay, this is Holiness says, self-preoccupation brings us misery. Viewing everything, whether large or inconsequential, in terms of ourselves, we become overly sensitive and easily offended, irritable and difficult to be with. True or not true? Oh, some of you are owning it, and some of you are looking, oh, me, I'm never difficult to be with. The self-centered thought clouds our judgment and makes us foolish. If people are kind to us, even if they have the motivation to manipulate or deceive us, we like them. Yeah. So if people are kind to us because they like us, we like them. But even if people manipulate us and put on a fake face to please us, we still like them, even though they're trying to get something out of us. That's how foolish we are. Okay. Yeah, all you have to do is like me, and I'll do whatever you say. Yeah. And so people, what do they say? You wrap them around your little finger. Yeah. But if people who care about us point out one of our faults or try to prevent us from making a bad decision, we get angry. True or not true? Mm-hmm. It's very true, isn't it? Skewing our interpretations of situations and people, self-centeredness is the cause of many mistakes and many bad choices. Expanding our focus to care about others alleviates this unhealthy self-preoccupation and enables us to connect better with others. As social animals, healthy interactions with others gives meaning and purpose to our lives. Okay? So he's really saying, listen, it's up to us how we train our mind to look at other living beings. Okay, verse 2. When I am with others, this is a very un-American verse. Okay, so Brits, you're okay. But I think Brits may have some difficulty with this one too. Yeah, because you used to be a superpower, yeah, and have an empire on which the sun never set, right? Okay, so listen to verse 2. Whenever I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. Oh, that's not even the whole verse. I just read 2 lines of the verse. I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. Any good American never sees themselves as the lowest of all. We are the superpower, yeah? And Brits, you are the empire. Yeah, even if you lost most of it, that doesn't matter. Yeah? You still have the Commonwealth, even though you don't share it and it's not common. Yeah? But America's the superpower. Yeah, we superpower everything. Yeah? You want a war, we will give you the military stuff to kill other people, and we'll give you the money, we call it aid, so that you can then buy our military stuff and then it's good for our economy, and that's what we care for. So we do not see ourselves as the lowest of all. Sorry, Longri Tampa. Okay, let's read the rest of the verse. It gets even worse. Okay, so here's what we say. When I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. Ugh. And from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. That is too much. You know, I'm supposed to hold these jerks who start wars with respect as supreme. Yeah? They're invading our country. Did you know that our president-elect said, you know, our country has been invaded, yeah, by a foreign force. Yes. Yeah, they've crossed our borders and invaded us. Mm-hmm. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, right? Isn't that how all of our relatives got here? Yeah, they crossed the border, they crossed the ocean. Yeah, they invaded this continent. Even the Native Americans, they crossed over the Bering Straits long before my relatives came, long before your relatives came. Yeah, our relatives came from Britain. No, mine didn't. Yeah, I don't have any British influence. Yeah, but some of you do. So you brought that idea of being an empire. Yeah, that's in your genes. And so you left Britain and you came here. Yeah, right, you. Yeah, all of you. Huh? Okay. But I'm going to practice seeing myself as the lowest of all. And from the very depth of my heart, I will respectfully hold you as supreme. See what a fantastic, holy spiritual practitioner I am. Others are supreme. Which means they should only realize I'm supreme. Yeah. Okay. What does His Holiness have to say about this? Okay. Building on the instructions in the first verse to see others as precious, the second verse points out that our arrogance is an obstacle to doing this. Arrogance? Who is arrogant? You? Oh, we have, yeah. Oh, there's these people in America admitting that they're arrogant. But the French Canadians didn't do that. Oh, wait a minute. Now they are. The Singaporeans in the room didn't do that. Oh, one Singaporean out of 3, just 4 out of 4 just raised their hand and admitted to arrogance. They're just this tiny island. Yeah. And you're arrogant about being a tiny island. Okay, so our arrogance is an obstacle to seeing others as precious. Love and compassion are based on seeing others as worthwhile and respecting them. These virtues are unbiased and go beyond the ordinary attitudes of cherishing those who help us and feeling pity for the less fortunate. Yes, that's how we're supreme, because we have pity for all those people who don't have the economy we have, who don't have the technological advance that we have, who don't have the genes that we have. You know, because these foreigners who are invading us, it's with their genes and they're polluting the blood of the pure Americans. Don't you know that? Yeah? Oh, you do know that? Yeah, but that's because you're British descent. And it's your genes. Well, Irish too. So you're at civil war. Part of you is British and part of you is Irish. Oh dear. Okay. So the foundation of impartial love and compassion is knowing that we and others are equal in wanting happiness and not suffering. Mm-hmm. But my happiness is still more important. Yeah. To remedy our arrogance and partiality, we practice seeing ourselves as the lowest of all. So this is a technique to overcome our arrogance. Okay. This must be understood in the proper context. It does not mean denigrating ourselves or succumbing to low self-esteem. Thinking we are worthless certainly can't lead to having compassion for others. Yeah, because when we just think we're worthless and we go round and around, I'm so bad, I'm so terrible, I can't do anything good, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, think I'll eat some worms, that thing, then, we're totally focused on ourselves. There's no love and compassion in that mind. And it's a very partial mind because, again, I am more important than everybody else. I'm just, instead of being more important because I'm the brightest and richest and most intelligent and most gorgeous, I'm now the worst one. But somehow I stick out from others. So Holiness is saying, nope, that doesn't work. Seeing ourselves as lower is done in relative terms. In general, human beings are considered higher than animals because we have the ability to distinguish virtue and non-virtue and understand the long-term results of our actions, whereas the ability of animals to do this is limited. From another perspective, however, we could say that animals are superior to human beings because animals kill only when they're hungry or to protect their life, when they are personally threatened, whereas human beings kill for sport and pleasure or when caught up in ideology or wrong views. Yeah. And that's really true, isn't it? We will kill on the basis of an ideology. Animals never do that. Yeah. Okay. So this verse encourages us to cherish others and appreciate their good qualities. When we invite guests to our home, we respectfully regard them as supreme, prepare a delicious meal for them, and serve them first. In our workplace and family life, we respect those in leadership positions. Sometimes. Similarly, here too, we regard others as supreme, regardless of their or our own social status. Yeah. When greed, hatred, or arrogance overwhelm us, we usually act without restraint, often in ways that we later regret. However, cultivating the thought that others are valuable and that we are just one among many people enables us to curb this behavior and this thought. Yeah. So imagine, if just thinking all day, me, thinking I'm one amongst many people. Yeah. I'm in the traffic jam. I'm one person on the highway. Yeah. So if another car wants to, if they do move a few feet in the traffic jam and somebody else wants to get in front of me, why don't I let them? Yeah. I'll get there, I'll get to my destination one car length later if I let somebody else in front. But it's so interesting, isn't it? People don't want to let somebody else in front. And if they do, road rage. Yeah. Okay, verse 3. In all actions I will examine my mind, and the moment an affliction arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. So when an affliction arises in our mind, when ignorance, anger, jealousy, hatred, arrogance, laziness, the wish to blame somebody else, a lack of conscientiousness, a lack of integrity, a lack of consideration for others, all these kind of afflictions, when we can see something like that arising in our mind, instead of acting out, instead of believing the story behind that emotion, we stop, and this is where mindfulness comes in. We're able to identify, what mental state we're in, and we become mindful of a more virtuous and more realistic mental state that we want to shift our mind to. Okay, so it's not just, oh, yes, I see that I am angry, and anger is an affliction, but it's overpowering me at this moment, so I'm just going to dump it all out on other people. No, it's, oh, I am angry. I've acted out of anger before, and I remember the results of having done that. And, not even thinking about karma and my future life, just in this life, when I have acted out of anger in the past, I've made situations worse. Yeah? Because I've blamed at people, I've yelled at them, I've gotten so upset that I just walk away and go in my room and close the door, and have a big pity party, not engaging with anybody because I can't stand the world because they don't appreciate me and everything I've done. Okay, so, this is saying, we, instead of feeding those emotions, instead of believing the story behind those emotions, and that story always centers on me, how people are treating me, and it's not right, and it's not fair, and they're abusing me, okay? The more I act out of that, then the more I face problems in this life, let alone if you believe creating the causes for what happens after death in our future life. Yeah? And so this verse is saying, when I see that going on in my mind, I'm going to pause and say to myself, I don't want to act out of that afflicted mental state. Yeah, because it just has too many disadvantages. And besides, it's totally unrealistic because I'm just thinking of myself and my own feelings. I'm into that periscope. I'm not seeing that other people are involved in this situation and that they have feelings and their feelings are important. Wow, you mean other people's feelings are important? It's not just my feelings that are the most important. Yeah, we know this intellectually, but when it comes to how we act on a day-to-day basis, we're out to lunch, aren't we? Yeah? Somebody even comes up and says, oh, could you move your car and park it over here? We get, what are you telling me to move my car and park it over there? I'm not doing anything wrong. I parked here and I'm staying here. My goodness. You know? Why do we get so... Yeah? It reminds me of one story I read about in the paper of... there was a couple, they had a newborn, and so they were having a date night. They went out to the movies. It was the first time they left their baby with a babysitter. So it was the first time. They were really nervous, okay? They're sitting in the cinema. Cinema's, black, and because everybody's watching the movie. There are people around them. So the husband, the father of the child who was left at home with the babysitter, calls home, and talks to the babysitter, how's the baby doing? Yeah, the baby's doing fine. Okay, thanks, goodbye. Then, dad's nervous, calls again in another half an hour. What the movie's going on, just, short thing, check how the baby is. Baby's fine. Well, the guy sitting behind them got so pissed after this happened a few times that he stood up and he started screaming at the couple in front of him, saying, I'm watching this movie. I paid to come see this movie. You're talking in the middle of the movie. That's disturbing me because I want to really sit here and watch it and enjoying it. And you have to stop talking. He got so enraged. And the couple sitting in front, they're going, what in the world's going on? And Dad, who's already a little bit nervous because the baby's at home with the babysitter, says, look, starts out trying to explain to the person why they are calling home and talking on the phone for all of 30 seconds every half an hour. But the other guy won't listen. And so then Dad starts screaming. He gets riled up. He gets really ticked. He starts screaming. Well, in America, where people can have guns because we have the Second Amendment, the guy sitting in back of them pulls out his gun, and he is so mad, he shoots the father in the middle of the cinema. Yeah, this is what, when a mental affliction arises in our mind and we don't handle it, we don't recognize it, we don't, handle it, this is what happens. My goodness. Yeah. So this verse has very practical implications. Okay, now you're going to say, well, that's an extreme situation. I'm not going to do that. Think about the time that you got the angriest in your whole life. Think about that for a minute. Yeah. What did you do? Do you feel proud of the way you acted when you got really, really angry? And how did it affect the people around you? Yeah. And how did those people treat you afterwards when they're trying to recover from, the effects of your anger? Okay? So, we can't put ourselves above others and say, oh, I'm different. Because, boy, we get riled up enough, and who knows what the world will do. It's scary. It's scary. Okay. Verse 4. Whenever I meet a person of bad nature. Okay, think of somebody who has bad nature. Of course, you're not judging them. You're seeing them realistically, totally 100% realistically. They have bad nature. They're a pain in the neck. They complain. They're uncooperative. They criticize you. Yeah? They criticize you. They point out your mistakes. Even when you haven't made a mistake. Even when you haven't made a mistake. It doesn't matter. They have a bad nature. And they always complain. That person comes over to your house. All they do, complain. Okay, whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, no, they're not overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering. They make me feel overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering. Well, maybe, pause for a minute, maybe somebody who we consider a person of bad nature is suffering. Maybe they're not happy. Maybe that's why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that person who complains all the time. Yeah, the person who points out faults, who you quickly say hello and goodbye to because you don't want to be around them. Okay, to see them that they're overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering. We know what that's like, don't we? We felt that way before. Well, this is what's going on with the other person. Yeah, and I think especially, at least in this country now, when things are so politicized, yeah, and you don't know what's true anymore, that's not entirely accurate. You can find some things are true, but there's so much misinformation about, to really think that the people doing this are suffering. They're unhappy. They're trying to find some way to have self-esteem. They're trying to find some way to feel like they are worthwhile, that they have some power. Yeah, and so that's why they act that way. So how is Lungri Tampa telling us to relate to them? I will hold such a rare one dear as if I had found a precious treasure. Putin? Yeah, Donnie? I'm supposed to hold them like a precious treasure? Look what they're doing! Okay, I get angry. What good does that do? Yeah. Well, I get angry because I'm afraid. I'm anxious. What good does anxiety do? Well, because they're going to tell the world apart, and this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and I'm going to be living on the street by tomorrow because the economy's falling apart and people are invading the country. Wait a minute. That hasn't happened. I don't need to go there and get all anxious about it and make up some kind of story. Yeah, let's pause. Let's calm my own mind. Yeah, this person who's doing these things that I object to, they're just trying to find some way to be happy because right now they aren't happy. Yeah. Now you might say, but I just saw pictures of them in the paper at this marvelous gala, with all the rich and famous people, and they're wearing their tuxedos and their hair is coiffed, and hairsprayed, all orange, part of it, it's, and yeah, and the men have their tuxes and their things up here choking them, and the women have as little clothes as possible and are freezing. Yeah. And, these people are rich or famous. They should be happy. Yeah. Imagine going to a gathering like that. are you going to be happy with those people? Sweating in your tux, freezing in your, whatever they're not wearing. Yeah? Are you going to be happy? Yeah? Where everybody's sitting there with a glass of booze. Yeah? Kind of taking a little bit so that they'll feel relaxed and they'll say more stupid things. Yeah? I mean, is that the epitome of happiness? That then the next morning you can go and tell all your friends at work, oh, I went to this big fancy gala. Well, one of those big fancy events, I can't even say what it is. It's G-A-L-A. Yeah, maybe the Brits say gala, we say gala, Oh, now to my international diplomacy here. Okay, they're going to go to 10 Downing Street and complain about me. Yeah. And then I can say, but I'm just doing what Boris does. Yeah. I'm talking how Boris talks. Where was I? Okay, so when these kinds of things happen, to stop and pull back and see everybody in this situation is just trying to be happy and feel good about themselves, but they don't know how to. Yeah? They don't realize that feeling good about themselves doesn't come from being around rich, powerful people. Feeling good about yourself comes from living in an ethical and kind way towards others, where you have no regrets. Yeah? People who exploit others for their own benefit, when they are alone with themselves, they are afraid, they might feel guilty, they get a little bit paranoid because they know that, they might get arrested or whatever. Okay. So, here, to see their suffering and, wish them well instead of wishing them to get hit by a truck. Yeah. Okay. His Holiness says we can apply this teaching to larger social situations. We may have prejudices about certain groups of people, for example, people branded as criminals, and not want them included within the scope of our, and not want to include them within the scope of our compassion. In the case of the incarcerated, it is important for us to release our biased antipathy and make an extra effort to give them a second opportunity to become accepted and productive members of society and to restore their self-esteem. And for any of us who have done work in prisons, we see that treating incarcerated people in a respectful way, just as the way we would treat regular people, makes a huge difference in their behavior. Yeah, treating people who we don't like in a respectful way, or people who have different political views, seeing them in a respectful way, opens the door to having some understanding that we're all human beings who want happiness and not suffering. Likewise, His Holiness continues, we may habitually ignore or avoid those with disabilities and the terminally ill. We may be afraid we will contract the illness, even if it isn't contagious, or the chances of our getting it are slim. Or we may feel uncomfortable witnessing their suffering. Yeah, so we have a relative who's in the ICU in the hospital. You know, we should go see them, but I don't like going to the hospital and seeing all these suffering people, because it reminds me that of one day that's probably going to be me. Okay, so I'm like this, suffering people, sick people, I don't want to go anywhere near them because I might get what they have. Even if science says what they have isn't contagious, I still don't want to go near them. Okay? Or we feel uncomfortable witnessing their suffering. I can't stand to see them suffer. Yeah, we think that's compassion, but when we are so much in pain seeing somebody else is suffering, we then at that time our focus is on ourself and our pain. We're not thinking about their suffering anymore. We're only thinking how much I suffer because I have to see them in suffering. Okay? So likewise, we may habitually ignore or avoid those with disabilities or the terminally ill. We may be afraid we will contract their disease, or we may feel uncomfortable witnessing their suffering. In these cases, too, we need to consciously cultivate empathy and compassion, remembering that we could one day find ourselves in similar circumstances, and we may need the kindness of others in those circumstances. Since we have the opportunity to overcome our deep-seated biases only by meeting people who are oppressed by negative energy and intense suffering, for us, seeing those people are like precious treasures. Doing that gives us the chance to enhance our fortitude, empathy, and compassion. We may even be surprised by how much we can learn if we open our hearts and minds to their experiences. Yeah. Instead of saying, I don't want it. There's too much suffering. Keep your suffering to yourself. Yeah. Okay. So that's a reaction of the self-centered mind. Okay, you ready to hear more? I know that the self-centeredness gets battered by these verses, but it's actually, he's telling them for our own benefit, because if we can practice and train our mind this way, we will wind up happier, our relationships with other people go better. Yeah, when time comes to die, we won't have any regrets. Even tonight when we go to sleep, we won't have regrets because we treated somebody unfairly. Okay, verse 5. Oh, this is a good one. When others, out of jealousy, mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on. See, I told you, that's the way everybody always treats me. My whole life. Abuse, slander, and so on. Especially the and so on. They really, gave me an extra dollop of and so on. Yeah, but abuse, I was abused my entire childhood. Never was anybody ever kind. Never. Yeah. Even my friends, even my playmates, even my dog. Constant abuse during my childhood. Even my pet frog didn't appreciate me. Yeah. And then they slandered me. People slandered. They said all sorts of lies about me. Remember in grammar school? I wasn't the only one who called people's names. They called me names. Yeah. But that's because they have cooties. Yeah. other people have cooties, but they accused me of having cooties. I don't even know what a cootie is, but they told me I had one. No, they told me I had many. It was plural. Yeah? Okay. They treat me with abuse, slander, and so on my entire life. I'm traumatized. Don't you feel sorry for me? I feel sorry for myself. Okay, what are we supposed to do? Longatampa says, I will practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to them. See? That's why I'm abused all the time. I always accept defeat. I always give the victory to others. I never stick up for myself. I just let people run all over me all the time. I need to find my voice and set those boundaries, and then these people will know what they cannot and can do to me. Oh. Yeah? This is what happens, isn't it? Yeah? Okay. Accepting defeat does not mean we make ourselves the world's doormat. Oh, shoo, finally he's talking something reasonable. Or accept responsibility for the wrongdoing of others. Well, it's always somebody else's fault. Why should I accept wrongdoing? In some conflicts, capitulating could damage others or ourselves. Here, offering the victory to others means that we don't have to have the last word in an argument. What? Of course, I have to have the last word in an argument. Why? Because I am right. And I am a crusader for righteousness. And everybody should realize they're wrong. That's my mission in the world. Everybody else is wrong and I'm right. Thus spake the Zarathustra. Thus spake the self-centered thought. Okay, here, His Holiness says, offering the victory to others means we don't have to have the last word in an argument or continually correct every small error others make. We can become more open and tolerant and less vindictive. When we are calm, we can try to clarify the situation and reach a resolution suitable to everybody. Some people like to quarrel and enjoy picking a fight. Oh, now he's talking. Do you like to quarrel and pick a fight? No. Yeah. Have you ever lived with somebody who likes to quarrel and pick a fight? Yes. You ask those people, do you like to quarrel and pick a fight? They say, no. And we ask them, have you ever lived with somebody who likes to quarrel and pick a fight? And they say, yes. Well, that's because they're talking about the dog. I don't quarrel and pick the fight. Okay, some people like to quarrel and enjoy picking a fight. I'm having a flashback of somebody I worked with. In such a situation, it is best not to bite the hook. That's what I did. When he wanted to pick a fight, I turned around and walked away. And then he screamed at me after I walked away. You see, nobody ever treats me properly. When we refuse to argue, okay, but sometimes I have learned, I think that maybe it was because at that time the way I turned away and walked away, maybe expressed a little bit of anger and triggered the other person. Okay. But I have learned that in some situations, if I don't see it as they're throwing out the hook and I'm going to bite it, because I have to have the last word. But when I refuse to squabble, and I don't bite the hook, then the argument can't continue. If I just say, it doesn't even mean that I have to acknowledge that I was the wrong one. Because often when somebody's upset, if we just acknowledge that they're upset and offer a little bit of empathy, then that can help them calm down, and the argument doesn't get more riled up. If we just, this is where nonviolent communication comes in. We just say, are you feeling angry? Because that, you need respect in this situation. We just offer that instead of going into defensive mode and blaming the other people. Because we don't because they're treating us with abuse, slander, and so on. Okay, are you getting what I'm saying? They treat me with abuse, slander, and so on. So then I think I have the right to treat them that way. And then it just blows up more. Okay. This is not to suggest that practitioners should simply yield to whatever harm or injustice is being inflicted upon them. In fact, according to the Bodhisattva precepts, we should respond to injustice with a strong countermeasure, especially if there is danger that the perpetrator will continue acting destructively in the future, or if others will be adversely affected. We need to be sensitive to the situation, okay? But we can respond strongly without being angry. Okay? So if something is happening and somebody is getting injured, we can interfere. We can have a calm mind and still interfere. Change the topic. Divert the person's attention. Do something to, change the situation. But we don't have to be angry to do this. I'll give you one example that I heard about. So walking across Central Park in New York is not very safe to do if you're a woman at night. Okay? So I heard a story about one woman who had just bought something. She was carrying some packages. She had to cross Central Park, and she was going quickly because it was, in the early evening. And then she heard somebody walking behind her, click, click, click. And, so somebody was following her. And she knew there was danger in the situation. She didn't get angry. She turned around, and with her packages, and said to the guy, "Here, can you carry these for me?" Handed him the packages, walked fast, and he followed her, because she said, "Carry this for me, follow me," and he did. They got to the other side of Central Park. She turned around and said, "Thank you very much," took the packages and walked away. Okay? So, we can be creative and think of how to diffuse situations. We don't have to be angry, whenever something happens. Okay, so I can tell that it is here 6 minutes before lunch, Yeah, I guess you people in Britain do you eat in the evening? Have you had your dinner? You have tea. Yeah, what time do you have tea? But you eat when you have tea. Is tea what Brits say for dinner? I don't know. Okay, anyway, now that I've created enough international discord, let me just read the rest of the verses. Yeah. Just so you can have the transmission. When someone I have benefited and in whom I have placed great trust hurts me very badly, I will see that person as my supreme teacher. I won't comment on that one. Okay. In short, I will offer directly and indirectly every benefit and happiness to all beings, my mothers. I will practice in secret, taking upon myself all their harmful actions and sufferings. Without these practices being defiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, by perceiving all phenomena as illusory, I will practice without grasping to release all beings from the bondage of the disturbing, unsubdued mind and karma. Okay, so that's just a little bit from approaching the Buddhist path. And you can learn more by reading the rest of the book and all the other ones that His Holiness wrote. Okay? So, with that, we will close. Okay.
Thank you so much, Venerable. So amazing to hear you. What beautiful, generous, and very timely words. Maybe continue to carry them on. We will indeed have tea. We call it tea, but it's dinner, so there will be food. Much gratitude to you and to Exorcity Abbey as well for making this opportunity possible. I'll let you all get food. Have a wonderful evening and day, and maybe we'll gather very soon.
Okay, thank you. And all of you are invited to come and visit the Abbey. Okay, we will treat you nicely when you come. Won't we? Yeah. Okay, Revolutionary War, we'll just forget about it. Yeah. The War of 1812. Yeah. Okay. So be well and happy, and yes, thank you for all the good work you're doing. Okay. We'll just do a chant here. Oh.
Sorry, I left the meeting.
You left the meeting? Okay. We'll just, Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.